Roblox is 80% engineering, so it's a very technical company, and we've always been having a focus on ML and AI. That AI became hot was Gen AI became hot, right? And then people understood that AI can be real.
So at least two departments where it does play a pretty significant role. So what are some differences also? I'm pretty interested. Are there some differences between trying to bring that into an engineering team versus maybe a customer service team?
We tend to overestimate a trend in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. Like we are overestimating the hype cycle we are in, driven by LLMs. But I think we cannot underestimate what AI can do in the future.
The shape of the work will change. So eventually, will everyone be able to use AI and have equal opportunity to use AI?
Maybe the best model to think about is Tony Stark with Jarvis from the Iron Man series or the Iron Person series. I see the future where it's a very personalized assistant like Jarvis is to Tony Stark.
Welcome to Lead with AI, the podcast where we explore how business leaders are integrating AI into their work, teams, and organizations. And in today's episode, we speak with Arvind KC, Chief People and Systems Officer at Roblox, about the AI-driven employee experience and how merging HR and IT is transforming their workforce. KC leads the efforts to evolve processes, systems, and culture, ensuring that Roblox's teams thrive and reach their highest potential. KC has over 25 years of executive experience, focusing on how technology drives exceptional organizational performance at incredible companies like Facebook, Palantir, where he was the CIO and CHRO, and Google, where he served as the VP of Engineering. Today, we'll learn why integrating HR and IT is crucial for a seamless AI-enhanced work environment, how to adopt AI tools where they can have the most and immediate impact, the importance of setting realistic expectation for AI's productivity boosts, how AI could reshape organizational structures and what you need to prepare for, and why starting your AI journey now and continuing it is critical for long-term success. So let's dive in. All right, KC, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you, Dan. Now finally get to meet you and talk.
Yes, I know. I'm sure you've been waiting your entire life for this moment, but here we are. So I got to start with the first question because as people will have heard in the intro, you are both leading people and system at Roblox. What does that role entail, both at the high level and maybe what does your day-to-day look like?
If you think of any company, right, there are three things that a company does. First is they build a product. Second is they build a business. And third is they build a company. The simplest version of my role is I'm responsible for the third, which is building the company. But the way we made it real is take all of the functions that cause us to attract amazing talent and enable them to thrive and bring them together in one umbrella. So specifically like the classical IT, HR, InfoSec, facilities, real estate, all of these contribute to creating conditions of how people work with each other and how people thrive in an organization. That's my highest order remit, is to create a really thriving, high impact workforce.
And I'm sure when you go to conferences and you speak to peers, that is not something that most people do. So what are some common questions that you get when people hear that you manage the whole tech side as well?
Yeah, actually it's interesting. Like most people don't do that, you're right. Most people aren't surprised by that because they just see that usually what happens is, my background is in engineering. If you're an engineer, you're not interested in some of like the people's stuff. And if you're like really good at about how do you think about people and organizations thriving, then you have pursued that as a career and not engineering. Difficulty in like straddling these two. The first time I straddled these two was at Palantir, where I was both their CIO and for some time their CHRO. And I think people appreciate and see that, yeah, this makes sense, that you're responsible for the overall experience. So they get it, but I don't think many people do it still.
Clearly, I think it's two worlds that seem to be very separate, but especially to our topic of today, they are probably actually closer than ever, right? When we're talking about AI, for example. So what does your day-to-day look like? What are some of the initiatives that you work on?
Yeah, so it waxes and wanes between things that are very strategic, things that are like tactical and immediate crisis of the moment. Ultimately, at any level of leadership, your job comes down to asking yourself, what is the most valuable thing you can be doing? And in case you're not doing that, what's preventing you from spending time on it and building systems that cause you to, spend more of your time in things that are incredibly valuable, right? So that's the principle of what I spend time on. So if I look at my day and say, am I working on the right strategic items? If the answer is yes, then I keep doing that. If the answer is no, then I know that there is something broken in the machine that I've built that I need to fix to cause me to spend time on the strategic stuff. And the strategic stuff varies across systems, varies across people.
Yeah, surely. And so you joined Roblox when the AI craze was kind of already going on. It was at a point where finally most people started actually really hearing about it. So at that point in time, was there already an AI strategy? Were there already systems that Roblox was looking at? Obviously, it's a very product-minded company as well. Yeah. So for the internal teams, what did that look like at that point in time?
Yeah. So Roblox is 80% engineering. So it's a very technical company. And we've always been having, focus on ML and AI. I think what you mean that AI became hot was Gen AI became hot, right? And then people understood that AI can be real. In the product, we do a whole bunch of things. And ultimately, we are a platform of creators. So Gen AI is very applicable to unleashing creators at scale. So we have tons of efforts around that. But the spirit of your question was on internal work. I break it into a few categories. There are natural places like Code Assist, which work really well. And then adjacencies like we can enable Gemini and other things for people in products where they are in. There are also things like support, where it's been a very good use case that we have deployed because LLMs are good at reading something and then helping people in a simpler way with that, and they don't have to read the whole thing. Where we have shied away from, which I think is implicit in your question, is where it has gone into the domain of decision making, right? Because I think that the regulation around that is still not super clear for us. And I think humans are really important for the final decision making. And a simple example could be, should we hire someone? And there we have, tended to be human first and really tried to keep AI as a co-pilot as opposed to the main pilot.
Okay, super interesting. So at least two departments where it does play a pretty significant role. So one, it sounds like in the engineering, which in this case is 80% of the company, and then also in customer support. So maybe can you give people a bit of a look into how Roblox operates, and especially in those two teams, how was Gen AI approached? How was it introduced? And, what are some differences also? I'm pretty interested. Are there some differences between trying to bring that into an engineering team versus maybe a customer service team?
Yeah, I'll answer the last question first, which is there is not actually a significant difference because you look for three things to be true. One is, do you have a model that is fit for purpose? And second is can it be deployed to where work is happening as opposed to asking people to go somewhere else? And the third is, can it function as a co-pilot versus a main pilot? Right. So if you think about the technical audience, and it says, you think of something like GitHub Copilot, you had a model that was fit for purpose because it was trained on a whole bunch of code and programs. It was deployed in the IDE where work was happening, and people really saw it as an assist as opposed to a replacement.
Yeah.
And the same we do with customer services. We have a model trained on the right knowledge base. It is deployed as a chatbot because that's where people are interacting with our customer support. And then it has got the ability to say, okay, this is beyond my capabilities, talk to a human. And then that way it is seen as an assist as opposed to someone who takes over your job. Right? So I think those patterns are very similar in how we've deployed it in both these places.
Was there a difference though? Because that makes a lot of sense, that there is a really good use case for it. And like you said, it's happening in the flow of work. So you're not asking people to go to a new platform to do something that's very foreign to them. It's happening where they already do the work. Was there any difference in how people were looking at it when it was just introduced, in terms of maybe were customer service people more frightful that eventually it would automate their entire work away, or were engineers more like that? Was there any difference in how people perceived it?
Yeah, I did not see that significantly at Roblox, but I have, as I talk to many of my friends and colleagues, the technical audiences tend to have a deeper understanding of what the product can do, and hence are not bought into the hype that this is a replacement. Right? Whereas the non-technical audiences are still trying to figure out, is this a replacement for what I do? So
Yeah.
there is some angst and hence a higher burden of change management that is associated as you deploy these. But I think you could very easily explain and reason and help people understand that this is taking away the grunt work of your job, allowing you
Yeah.
to do higher value added things.
So do you think also because Roblox is a pretty technical organization that, people just understand more intuitively that no matter what demo you see or no matter what you're hearing about, it's not really realistic that at least on the short term is actually going to take your job away? Like people just get it?
I mean, I think in every organization, you need a certain amount of work for people to understand and grok it.
Yeah.
But at Roblox, I've encountered excitement and curiosity as opposed to concern and worry.
And were there any specific things you put into place in terms of like how you introduced, for example, GitHub Copilot to the teams, or what platform are you using for the customer service side?
Yeah, so our customer service is it's got both a combination of internal bots that we have built, and we've also working with Sierra. And in terms of the differences between Copilot and Sierra, I think with technical audiences, that maybe goes to your previous question, is things tend to be more widely adopted if they're useful. And whereas with a little bit of the non-technical organizations, you have to nudge to make a particular thing happen. But largely, the nudge is not extensive. It's minimal. And as people see the value of it, they adopt it quite a bit. Like in our HR organization, we have a bot which uses the leading LLMs. That is our primary support mechanism. And the team has been extremely happy to adopt that because they can see that the moment they turn it on, it's the same question that is asked a million times that gets answered by the bot. So people just feel like, oh my God, I don't have to do that. Somebody else is doing that.
Yeah, it's hard to say no to that. So that makes
exactly right.
that makes a lot of sense. And I saw on Twitter or X that you've been experimenting with some Claude agents. So obviously, especially within your very technical company, maybe people are also looking into, what's the next thing going to be after manually prompting something, getting some help in the flow of work, maybe programming some GPTs, then eventually. Do you see a future where fully autonomous agents will also be a part of the organization? And like, how do you see the collaboration then between, the people in the company and those agents?
Yeah, I got really excited by agents initially when I saw not just the cloud agents, like what you could do with LangChain and then Llama Index. And I'm more cautious now than I was before, right? And I think the initial idea was give a rough task to intelligent coworker who's the machine, not a human, and then let them go and figure out how to do it, come back to you for some minimal checks, and then they keep doing the work that is there. The actual implementation of agentic workflow just doesn't seem to be close to that vision. I tried, I waitlisted, was the waitlist for Devin, I never got in, I don't think it's open still. I tried Open Devin and that was not a fun experience at all. So I think part of the challenge is agentic workflows in some sense rely on LLMs to have things that it doesn't intrinsically have, like it cannot reason and plan, it doesn't have memory, and you need to figure out a way to solve all of these. So there'll need to be some architecture changes before that becomes real. And so today it is still to me much more of a more efficient task completer, as opposed to someone whom I can give a project just being a series of tasks that you go and figure out. Right? So I still think LLMs are operating in the task mode and not at the higher level, which is a project or a problem mode.
And do you think that we're going to get there? And if so, within how many years? Because OpenAI just released that sort of the 5 stages towards, a fully autonomous organization. How many years do you think we're away from anything near that?
Again, keeping it gritty and real, I'm skeptical of that. By the way, I'm not an AI researcher, but my readings are more aligned with how Jan LeCun and Meta are thinking about it, where I think that the transformer architecture has got some intrinsic limitations, and that's not going to be getting us anywhere close to AGI. And a different approach is needed, which many researchers are working on. So to your question on how many years it will take us to be more autonomous as an organization, optimistic, and I think that you can see that in 5 years or so. But I don't think it is around the corner, and I don't think it is going to happen through LLMs.
So how is it going to happen?
The alternate architectures that Meta is exploring, for instance, or Google is exploring, Jan LeCun has got a good paper on it. To me, those are more promising than what LLMs are capable of, right? And in some ways, I think like this one of the challenges is there's a hype around LLMs because you've taken something that is very confident and articulate and associated that with competence, right? And that's a common mistake that we make. And hence we think it can do things much more than what it actually can. And I think the ARC is a really good example of a test that LLMs fail continuously because it's a simple puzzle that a 6-year-old can do, but cannot be done by LLMs because it's not from memory. They haven't seen it before. And so more we think about how can we truly enable reasoning and planning and then augment LLM in that architecture, I think that will work.
It sounds like there's definitely a limitation then, right? Because you're talking to a non-techie and most of our community will be non-tech audience. There's kind of like a limitation. So there is a lot of efficiency to be gained from AI. And for a lot of people, they're still very early in that journey of even learning how a ChatGPT works and maybe getting the most out of them before they really get all the benefits of AI. But it sounds like we're going to maybe ramp that up over the next couple of years. And at some point, there is going to be plateau in terms of how much we can get out of it.
I don't know if there'll be a plateau anytime soon. Like, I think the key point I'm making is we tend to overestimate a trend in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. Right? So I think like we are overestimating the hype cycle we are in, driven by LLMs on what is possible. But I think we cannot underestimate what AI can do in the future. So if you think about 10, 20 years out, or even like 50 years out, AI is going to be very much embedded in things, be part of your organization. But that's not going to happen right now. The current architectures, we still have a few technological breakthroughs that are necessary before we approach anything that is AGI.
Ask one more question about the future, and then I'll go back to the current day reality. So the future question, where do you see it eventually going then? So let's say Jan LeCun and others, they solve this problem where, the AI can do way more than the LLMs can do today. What does an organization look like at that point in time?
I still think humans are a very integral part of an organization. But what you're going to see is a bunch of, augmented intelligence. And for me, maybe the best model to think about is Tony Stark with Jarvis from the Iron Man series or the Iron Person series. I think like that's going to be more a reality of what happens to many people is that you can have a very intelligent, you have to figure out the user interface, but you can have a very intelligent companion that knows more about you, that can brainstorm with you, that can guide you, that can help you do a bunch of grunt things. And how does it come as a form factor? Is it just like a thing in your phone? Is there a different form factor that people, maybe you wear a glasses as you're doing things? I think all of those would be helpful, but I see the future where it's a very personalized assistant like Jarvis is to Tony Stark. I definitely think that's in the realm of possibilities.
Much more than ChatGPT memory can do right now in just remembering where I live and what kind of job that I do. Okay.
That's right. We've all tried like those things, but this is much more context of, it could range from, if I'm wearing some glasses, I look at a particular food, it knows me, my data in a very secure way to say like, actually that food you should not choose. It's not good for you. You have not slept enough today. You've not exercised enough. Why don't you go here and get this juice?
I would put those glasses off immediately. That sounds terrible. I don't want to have that advice. Let me enjoy my ice cream. Come on. Okay.
Yeah, that's where the glasses would know you and say, hey, you like ice cream, just go have it.
Right, exactly. Go straight, take a left. There's the ice cream shop. Okay. So we recently saw this, I still don't know if it was a PR stunt or they actually dropped the ball, but this whole idea of Lattice saying that you're now going to have AI employees in your organization. So your point of view is more like you're actually still going to have the same org chart as always, which is humans, but all those humans are going to have their own personalized AI that's going to make them better.
I think the org chart will undergo some change. I don't want to posit that the org chart will be the same. I think the amount of work you can get done per person will increase. So that will push towards a given organization having a lesser number of people for the same level of revenue output.
Yeah.
Right? And then, of course, that doesn't mean that the total work in the society will decrease. It will be more organizations coming in. I think the other thing that will happen is the organization structure could change significantly. Like, I don't think you've classically had a 1:7 ratio of, like, say, a manager is to a person because that's the capability of a human. But if you say that like every person gets automated agent as a coach, mentor, in addition to the human manager, you can start scaling things very differently, right? And I think that the skill sets that are required for people to be successful in organization will undergo an evolution. Like, before Excel and computers were there, once Excel and computers came in, you needed people who could wield those tools. Right.
Yeah.
So similarly, you're going to have people who can wield and like work with AI in this augmented workforce. So organizations will change, but I don't think always like in any technology change, jobs get eliminated, but work does not get eliminated. So like the sum total of work that is there will be the same by humans, but the shape of that will change.
The shape of the work will change. So eventually, will everyone be able to use AI and have equal opportunity to use AI? Like some people obviously are way ahead. And I'm really curious, like as you're talking to your peers, I'm sure a lot of people are going to bother you with a lot of questions like, KC, how does this work? How does this work? What tool should I use? What platform should I use? There seems to be a lot of companies struggling to just upskill people to get them to use AI tools, which, we just had this whole conversation about how this one pharma company was reported to have dropped Copilot because after 6 months of trying it, they didn't really get anything out of it. And then everyone replied and said, well, yeah, that's because there wasn't good change management. There wasn't good training. Are the AIs just not smart enough and intuitive enough for people to take it up in their workflow? Like you said, if a coder gets code assist, they're just going to use it. It makes sense. Like, why not? And for other people, maybe the use cases aren't really, really clear, or people just don't know how to open the tool or where to do. What kind of, problems do you see in companies trying to get people onto AI?
Yeah. Change management is always a big problem, right? And like most of the technology transformations fail because you're trying to change people, change process, change technology at the same time. So you got to reduce the variables of change. One thing that you can do is start small by embedding this in things that people already do. Like Copilot of GitHub gave you a very good footprint is if people are already using like, Slack or a browser, can you bring AI to those tools, and through a browser, can you do a browser extension and bring it there as opposed to asking them to do something different? I think that's like one aspect of the change. The second aspect of the change is like, you want to be real about the expected benefits. Right? So if you take software engineering, some of the estimates are, by the way, the best use case for LLMs. Some of the estimates are that it's about a 35 to 40% improvement in productivity. So you're not going to get, for the best use case, you're getting 35 to 40%. You're not going to get a lot more for the non-best use cases. So don't think of this as a thing that is going to completely revolutionize your workforce in the 1 year time frame, but it is going to revolutionize your workforce in the 10-year time frame. So when something is going to change what you do in 10 years, the only thing you can do is be very consistent about it, right? Be small, be consistent, be always learning, keep deploying it in like multiple places where you can, and don't expect like, transformation results overnight, but you will have transformation results in 10 years.
Yeah. And do you think it makes sense for every company right now to do that experimentation and to get into AI? Or would you say from your particular perspective, certain companies, don't worry about it. Maybe in 2 years, the software will be better. It will be more integrated. It will be easier for people to adopt. Just wait it out. Do you think everyone should get on it, or is there still a bit of waiting as well?
No, I think this is a long AI, and I'm not thinking about AI in general and not Gen AI. I think AI is a trend that is here to stay. I feel like for all companies, there are only two things that they should do. They should begin, they should continue.
Okay. Okay, so definitely start and definitely continuously learn.
It's not a trend you can ignore. It's equivalent to saying that in 2000, do you think a company should be on the internet or not? Right? And you'd say like, should they wait for Web 2.0 to come because Web 1.0 is like a bunch of janky technology? And you're like, no, not really. Like you're going to get better with Web 2.0 if you started your journey with Web 1. There's no right time, right? The right time is now. I think the classical thing is like the right time to plant a tree was yesterday. The second best time is now.
Is now, okay. And then how about on an individual level? And we can take this from really senior leadership like you to maybe mid-management to individual contributors. what kind of AI skills should people pick up? Like, does it make sense for everyone to go and learn prompt engineering? I know you had a post about how for something like computer science, you need a lot of patience because not everything is going to work out immediately. And sometimes you have to break through pretty difficult problems. Given that people are already very busy and feel like they don't have time to do their current job, do you think still everyone should pick up at least some AI skills? And if so, where should they start?
And by everyone, I'm going to qualify it as everyone who's interested in the corporate sector and like an economic.
Right, let's say knowledge workers. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
And because I have friends who want to be in national parks all day, and I think they should do that. And but if we take the context of knowledge workers, the short answer is yes. Let's talk about how. I find enormous use cases that help me on my day-to-day basis. Like for instance, in Gemini, you can give it a YouTube video link and say, transcribe this for me in less than a paragraph, and it gives you a very good summary. You can upload your video in the AI studio that Google has. And again, I'm using Google as an example, but you can do it in multiple other places. And then ask it to say, and I've uploaded videos of me playing tennis or swimming and said, like, tell me how I can improve my technique. And actually, it does a pretty good job of that. I've been able to create, storybooks for my kid. So you can just have Gen AI draw diagrams, write stories of the values you want to teach. So there are like tons of use cases that you can use it and have fun with. So I would encourage people to always like get in with that. Right. So that's the knowledge worker who's not a technologist as the core thing. If you're a technologist, and especially if you're in the space of ML and AI, you need to think of this as a 10-year learning journey, not like a 1 year, 24-hour learn Gen AI. And that doesn't mean that you have to wait for 2 years to build your models. You can take the approach that companies like Fast AI has, where you start building models and training models in the first hour of your lessons. And then you periodically just keep unraveling the layer of onion, right? Sometimes you'll go down the path of model building. Sometimes you'll go down the path of mathematics. Sometimes you'll go down the path of building applications. But you think of it as a 10-year learning journey.
It sounds like a long journey, but it makes sense because these are pretty fun one and a meaty subject.
And you're talking about a 50-year trend, right? Just think about how much ahead you'll be in 10 years for a 50-year trend.
Yes, it's been a long journey already, and surely there's a lot more to come. We're at the end of our time, so I just have a couple of quick fire questions. And number one is going to be your favorite AI tool.
Very tough. I thought about this, and it's a tough one. I like Suno quite a bit for the music it generated.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun for me. But the most used one is I alternate between like a Cloud, OpenAI, and Gemini, and I especially like the AI Studio Gemini because I think the multimodal capability is better than what I see in other places. Meta is great for images, by the way.
And using all of them side by side?
Yeah, like I think I spend money on each of, subscribe to all of them because I want to understand how they work.
Okay, hopefully with the company card. And then one unique use case for AI in your daily routine. So I think we already heard one in terms of getting Gemini to critique your sport, but what else do you use it for?
I usually find it very valuable to explain things to me in simpler terms. Like my previous pathway used to be, if I want to understand something, I'll Google it. And then the 10 blue links was very onerous for me because I had to click each link and try to summarize it and synthesize it. Whereas now if I want to understand a concept, I'll just say like, explain this concept to me. And if I don't get it, I'll be like, okay, make it like a 5-year-old, give me a few examples. And I just keep going deeper and deeper, like now try an alternate explanation. And that to me, like really helps me learn things faster. And it can range from, we've had scenarios where if it's a family medical thing, you share an image and then you say like, explain this to me. Comes up with a bunch of medical gobbledygook, and then you're like, okay, I don't understand any of it. Like, tell me better.
That's where you're getting towards that Jarvis idea of, okay, it's really tailored to me, and you can use, analogies that I get and from my context. That's right. So that's where it starts to become more personal already.
Yeah. AI cannot be about just I know you. It has to be you know me.
Yes.
So then you have a better conversation.
Yes, and obviously the more data it gets, the better that will become, right? And
there's
that's probably what Microsoft
scary, creepy part of it, but I'm a technologist, and I think that can be solved.
Yes. I think that's where it always gets a bit worrying when people say, oh, I got this new AI plugin and it's recording all my meetings. I was like, oh, where's that data going? That sounds scary.
And maybe blockchain finally has a valid use case in like it being in decentralized stuff somewhere and not in a single entity.
Right. Yeah, or running locally or anything like that. And then the final question. So what should business leaders do? What's the one thing that they should do tomorrow if they want to get themselves and their organizations ahead with AI?
Can I give you two?
Yeah, of course.
I think the first is whatever is a project you think has got some traction, just get started on it. Can be scrappy, don't worry about it, just get started on it because the learnings you'll have from it are much more than trying to wait for the stars to align. My second thing would be find a way to spend some time with the students in the university who are working on ML and AI because there's a sheer excitement and knowledge that they bring that most execs are out of touch with. So like I love connecting with students in either Stanford, Berkeley, or Santa Clara University. And every time I speak to any of them, I walk out like, oh, wow, like that's great.
That's so cool. Okay, so number one, get started on your AI experiments. And then number two, find a couple of ML students. Sounds
and hang
fantastic.
out with them.
And hang out with them and get excited. Okay, Casey, I'm excited. Thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you, Dan. I enjoyed our conversation as well.
Thanks so much for joining us today as we explore the AI-driven employee experience at Roblox with Arvind KC. Here are the actionable key takeaways from the conversation. Number 1. Integrate HR and IT for a seamless AI experience. While it's definitely not the norm, merging these traditionally separate functions under one umbrella could dramatically enhance your organization's ability to empower talent. KC emphasizes that this integration is not just about efficiency, but it's about creating an environment where people can truly thrive. Number 2, adopt AI tools strategically where they provide immediate value. AI adoption should focus on areas where it could provide clear and immediate benefits, like in engineering and customer support. For AI to be effective, it must be seamlessly integrated into existing workflows rather than imposing entirely new systems. KC pointed out that successful AI deployment is about finding models that are fit for purpose, like GitHub Copilot in engineering or chatbots in customer support, and don't require teaching employees new workflows. Number 3, set realistic expectations for AI impact. In software engineering, AI may make people up to 40% more productive, but KC cautioned to not think that will apply to all roles. At the same time, he said that we're overestimating the hype cycle driven by LLMs, but that we cannot underestimate what AI can do in the future. So while the hype around AI's short-term impact is often exaggerated, the long-term possibilities are vast. So it's crucial to start small, scale gradually, and be patient as the technology matures. Number 4, prepare for changes in organizational structure. So as AI continues to enhance productivity, it may lead to significant shifts in how teams are managed and how organizations are structured. KC envisions a future where AI enables a different scale of management, possibly reducing the need for traditional managerial roles. Jarvis-like AI collaborators could further supercharge individual contributors, meaning that the org chart of the future could look very different from the one today. And number 5, start and continue your AI journey. So no matter your industry, the time to start with AI is now. KC has spoken. Experimentation and continuous learning are crucial as AI is a trend that cannot be ignored. The companies that begin and maintain their AI journey will be the ones that truly transform over time. And KC said it very clearly. For all companies, there are only 2 things they should do: start and continue. Thanks so much for joining me, and join again next week. If you like this episode, please hit subscribe and give this podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcast. This helps a ton to get more business leaders to successfully implement AI in their work, team, and organization. To be the first one to get updates on new episodes, subscribe at flexos.org/AI.